and me and my tone. You can't step to my throne. They ain't working like me. I did this on my own. You asking where we been, huh? I don't know where to begin, huh? All this dirt on my skin. I just came here to win.
Hey, how's it going? It's Larry Streeter, CEO of Senita, and I'm the gentleman. Today, I'll be speaking with Senita with a very interesting story and a great and positive, inspiring message for everybody. So, Senita, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, what you got going on, and who you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Senita. I'm also go by the name of Sin. So I am a marketer. That is my day job, but I also am an influencer. I have a blog, a YouTube channel, and a very poppin' Instagram. And that is the Life of Sin.
Okay, Sin. Okay, so you mentioned that you are a marketer, YouTuber. So how do you balance all of these things? These two interesting areas of expertise.
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting because in marketing you kind of evolve with time, and so this is something that I do by day. So it's something that I'm kind of tapping into and getting my feet wet personally. So that is, something that's really good to already have that knowledge. But in order to balance everything, you just have to make the time and the commitment, because anytime you're trying to show your voice, it's always important to, set some time aside for yourself to do things like that.
Correct, exactly. I'm definitely a strong advocate for that. No matter if you're in a, working a 9 to 5 or whatever it is you're doing, you have a career, it's always good to invest time in yourself, in order to build something on your own that makes you happy. So how did you get into marketing?
Well, I think it's the normal or typical Black marketing story. But when I was growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but everything on TV was, a marketing job. Everyone had a cool marketing job. So I remember watching Boomerang thinking, oh man, I want to be like Haley Berry and Marcus Graham, and, even Gina from Martin, she was in advertising. So I thought that would be cool because I really love the arts and entertainment, but I'm not a singer or anything like that, or a sports player. So I thought that was a really interesting way for me to kind of get into more like entertainment and media. So I ended up going to school at Northern Illinois University, and I went to their business program and decided on marketing as my major.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So what exactly does a marketer do exactly?
A marketer. So it's funny because I was thinking about it the other day, because when you go to school, you do get a degree in science. And so there is a science behind it. It's about knowing who your target is, how to reach them and where to reach them. And then even today, it's a lot more interesting because things can go viral at any minute. So today I would say you would have to know about culture, and and that can be anything, right? So you have to know about your target, the ins and out. So from my perspective, I've worked on a couple different brands and companies, but I am multicultural marketing by heart, but I've also worked in more traditional marketing. So I think that, marketing today, you have to know everything about your customer and your consumer.
Right. Yeah, I think it's very important in marketing to narrow down. The little bit I do know, kind of narrowing down who you're going after, as opposed to trying to cast this large net, expecting, results when there's so much competition out here nowadays. As far as, like you said, back a while ago, only certain people had access to media, which is like TV. But now your computer, your phone is TV. So that means there's millions of people who have access to the same millions of people you have. So it makes things a little more difficult. But if you do as you said and kind of focus and narrow it down, you do have a better opportunity of reaching people. So what I'd like to ask you is, what is your personal philosophy? What makes you a good marketer? Like what about you is that you put into your marketing that makes you good at it?
I think that today you have to change so much and evolve with time. So when I first started out, I actually worked at a newspaper agency. So I knew for a fact that that wasn't where I wanted to stay. So I went to a traditional agency. I worked at Burrell Communications, which is a really well-known African-American multicultural agency in Chicago. And I worked across traditional, which was like newspaper, radio, print. But then even that, I had to expand and go into digital. And so as you can see today, 10 years ago, your Instagram, I don't even know if there was Instagram. I know it wasn't a TikTok. So I think, today you have to always stay ahead of the curve and invest in the new technologies and just kind of learn more about what's out there. So really always building, your knowledge up and learning more about what's going on. And I have a little bit of an advantage because I also teach as well. So when I have taught in the past, having younger students, they know what's going on. So just having that connection with them and being able to talk with them and see, what they think is going on in the industry also helps me as well.
Okay. Crystal asks, has your job ever interfered or conflicted with your personal brand or content?
Not at this moment. I think that my personal brand is still kind of smaller, so it hasn't really evolved into something like huge or huge as of yet. But I think that because of my where I work now, I'm actually doing something that I'm passionate about. So it's kind of a good thing because it kind of helps me out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned that you, at one point, which is very interesting, you worked for a newspaper company. I mean, I know we all at some point was like, oh, I wonder what that would be like. We see the movies, like it makes me think about Superman and you're trying to get that story out. But how does newspaper, if any way, translate over to the digital world, or is there any? I know there's obviously technology has advanced, but is there anything that kind of transitions over to the digital world that's very similar?
Yeah, I think when I worked in newspaper, and this was like when I first started out, so we were buying all the newspapers across America. So, I worked on the Toys R Us account, and, Toys R Us isn't here anymore, but, back in the day, they would buy full page spreads in newspapers. And so I think now that they've created websites, that is where they advertise now. So just recently, I was working on a huge consulting account, Ernst & Young, and we ran a lot of ads like on New York Times, but digitally. So we didn't really buy anything in the newspaper. So everything is evolving and coming on digital, and even like print as well. So like the Essence magazines and, Jet and Ebony, like they're, I'm not saying that they're going to be gone because, our aunts, our mothers, like that's a tradition to kind of have that on your table every month. But, they have evolved. They now have a lot of digital properties, and then they do a lot of events like pre-COVID. So I think that every medium, like media medium, is actually having to evolve. And even with COVID, for example, you can see like the NBA, like they had to play in a bubble, right? And like they had to have interactive fans within the crowd. And so how did they sell tickets or advertising and things like that? So everything is evolving and you just have to always stay ahead of the curve.
Correct. Okay. So so let's get to the good stuff. I read a lot of all of the literature on your website. It's a very good read. I've asked anyone to go over and check that out. But what I want to ask you is something very interesting that's always been interests me. It's always been intriguing for people who just up and leave and go somewhere. Like at the moment, it's something that I think about, that what would it be like, but I never, really committed to saying I'm just going to leave Chicago. I want to completely go stay somewhere else. How was that for you? Like, or just tell people what exactly. Give us a little bit of background about that.
Yeah, so I always wanted to live in New York, and I was at a point in my life where I just didn't think I was going to do it, because I ended up going back to school to get my degree. I bought a condo, and so I was like, this is it. I'm just going to stay in Chicago. But when I graduated, I could not find a job in New York. In Chicago, and I was like, what is going on? So I called up a couple of my girlfriends and I told them, hey, I'm going to couch surf for 2 weeks. I'm applying to a lot of jobs. And by the time I get on this plane, I'm sure I'm going to have some interviews. And I landed 3 interviews. And I was nervous because I was like, okay, I was just, seeing what happens. I came out here in New York for 2 weeks and I interviewed, and then I got to like the second round before I even had left. And then I had my final round with one company over the phone, and they made me the offer like a couple days after I got back to Chicago. And so I had to make a decision because it was a dream that I had always had, and I just didn't want that opportunity to pass me by. And when I was here in New York for the 2 weeks, I just had such a great time and experience with all the people and all the different cultures and like all the different things that you can do in New York. So I just knew that it was something that I had to do in this lifetime.
Right. So when you're saying all the different cultures, what do you mean by that as opposed to staying in Chicago? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I feel like Chicago is cool, but you're from Chicago, so it's like this part of the city looks like this and that part of the city looks like that. And I'm sure that now, it's blending and changing and things like that. But like when I went to New York, it was like, for example, like they have projects, but then they have $1 million homes right next to each other. And so it's just a melting pot. And then different cultures, like, there's so many different people, like different skin colors, like different nationalities, like the Afro diaspora is like so big here. You have people from the West Indies, African culture, all over the place. And it's just such a great melting pot. Like I really enjoy just learning about everyone else and just getting out of my comfort zone.
So did you know anybody in New York?
I did. I actually had 2 really close friends. My best friends actually lived here. And then I had a friend from college who moved here right away. And when I originally would like investigate New York, I would stay with her in Queens, which is crazy because I never go to Queens now.
Now I want to say maybe it was easier having people there. However, I know that as an individual, like just leaving everything, if you need something, you know where to get it. Like, how was the transition for you moving and relocating there and just saying, hey, I'm here?
Well, one thing I will say is that I took the mindset to say, I'm going to date the city, right? So it was like, it was in New York, you can be alone, but you're not alone. Right. Okay. So like I would like pick places in different like areas to like go investigate and then people watch, because there's so many people doing so many different things. And New York just has this feel where it's just like you look around and people are just doing so many interesting things. You could literally be on the subway and like there's somebody who sounds better than a Beyonce singing to you. And like you're just like, wow, you have like break dancers on the train, or you could go to Central Park and just like hang out and chill out. So it's just so much to explore. Before COVID, it was just so much to explore and to see. So I think that kind of helped me to not be afraid to go out there and just, be vulnerable in the city and just learn about it. And, by the time I hit 1 year, like I was able to just get on the train and know where I was going. I like to read maps and things like that, but like I learned it so fast and you just catch on so quick.
Now, is it true that it's better to not have a car in New York? Is it like that, or is it like Chicago where it's just like sometimes the traffic is heavy, sometimes it's not?
I have been in New York for almost 9 years and I have not owned a car. My car was my bus pass, my subway MTA pass. So you do not need a car. You can always get places. And even now with like Uber and Lyft and things like that, you can always get around. But I personally, as I get older, and there's more to see outside of New York. There's so many good towns cities next to New York. So Philadelphia is like only an hour away, and then DC's 3 hours. So if you have a car, you can venture out. And then I also have gone like upstate New York, and Long Island has their beaches and stuff. So it's a good thing to have a car, but you don't necessarily need one because you can get I got to Philly like on a mega bus, like for like $15.
Yeah.
So you don't really need one.
Okay. So now along your journey, which is a very interesting journey so far, you've encountered a major obstacle. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah. So in December of 2020, at the age of 37, 2 weeks before my birthday, I discovered that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so that was a very tough journey. I did not know. It was very overwhelming. I did not know, what the reason was, but I knew it was just something that I had to like face and kind of face with a positive like energy, positive vibe. So the last 6 months I went through chemo. So even though you see me like how I am, like underneath this all, I don't have any hair because the chemo took it out. But despite all of that, I try to stay positive. I try to like set goals and like keep moving forward and like keep a positive outlook.
All right. Well, I don't want to make any assumptions, but it sounds like you're a very positive person, and it would appear that you've always been like that. Is that true? Or
yeah, I think that if I hadn't had that foundation of trying to be a positive person, you can ask any of my friends. Like I always would encourage them, or be reading like affirmations, like all over my house. I was like, what is it, Mary Jane, who has all the Post-it notes everywhere. And so I try to motivate myself and push myself because, I've gone through a lot in life even before this. And that was one way for me to like always stay grounded. So when you're facing a challenge or obstacle like this one, like I've never faced anything like this before, and it's very difficult, very hard. And so I say, staying positive will allow you to move forward. And also that is like so powerful, like your words, your affirmations, and what you manifest, like will help you to move forward, right? Like I'm talking to you, like I just finished chemo like 2 weeks ago. Like June the 14th was like I had 16 rounds of chemo, and I'm here today, just to encourage and inspire people, and just to tell them like, no matter how rough or difficult, you can get through it, and not alone, because I was the type of person who like, I wouldn't call anyone for anything I figured out myself. But this opportunity has allowed me to ask for help and see people showing up for me. And I think that, you know, us as Black people or women, or, you know, maybe you're a strong-minded person, we never want to ask for help, but it's about community. And I'm starting to see like it's about community, it's about love, and that's how you move forward with your challenges.
Right. I totally can relate with you on the not, not asking for help. And I went through things where I lost my leg, and in that situation, I had, like, even if I didn't want to, people would help me, and I began to accept help. And even now I still struggle with that. But in order to have any level of success, or if you want to help other people, you're going to have to get help from people in order to help other people. So, I think that's a very powerful message. And I think that everything happens for a reason. And that may be one of the reasons you went through what you went through, because it opened you up to asking for help. And, it just forced you to do it. So it's like you have a special purpose that, you had to go through something very traumatic, which I'm sure you wouldn't wish on anybody. As anything I went through, I wouldn't wish on anybody. But, for someone that maybe as strong-minded as yourself, it's like something big had to happen in order for you to get to that point where you wanted to actually get help to get to where you want to go. What is your channel about? Your channel, your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel, the funny story is I started my blog when I was in grad school, and I had an assignment. This is when blogging first came out. So I had an assignment to do this blog, and I was like, what am I going to do this blog about? So I was like, I'll do it about myself, right? And I was like, everyone calls me Sin. So I was listening. This will be noted, right? I was listening to Tupac or Machiavelli, and he has the song "Me and My Girlfriend." So I was listening to it, and it was like, all I need in this life of sin is me and my girlfriend. And so I was like, oh, the life of sin. That's what I'll name it. So I ended up naming my blog "The Life of Sin," and this was like 10 years ago, so 2010. And so it was just kind of like a passion, and I let it go. And then it came back last year in the pandemic because I had time on my hand. And the crazy thing is that I was trying to make it more like about my life and about my journey, like with work and like things like that. But I never knew that it was gonna be the platform for me to tell my story about this journey, because I think it's important for, women of color, people of color who have health challenges, health disparities, to learn about it, to be proactive about it, to figure things out. And not only that, but to advocate for themselves. So I will say that my blog or my YouTube channel will be about my journey, but that is just a chapter in my story. So I expect that, after I beat this diagnosis that I have, that it will look a lot different. So maybe you'll see, like, in the future, me getting married, me having a baby, like it'll be like my story. And there was one blogger who I really admire, and her name is Maya, and she had a blog and she documented her life. And it, like, the first year was, it was called Fearless, like a Shameless Maya. Yeah, that's her name, Shameless Maya. So for her first year, it was just her just kind of doing these challenges of like how to overcome some of the fears that she had. And I was like, I want to do that, And now, 10 years later, I think she's done so many amazing things. Like, she even worked with Prince, like, before he left. And now she's like moved to Sweden, and she's having a baby at the age of 39. So, that really inspired me. And I feel as if though, like, I wanted to do content similarly to that. And as I go on my journey, I plan to do that and let people into my life, but not just to like watch me, but to inspire people and encourage them to be able to do those things that they're afraid of and that they don't think that they can do and accomplish, and so that they can see that for themselves.
Definitely. So, how do you think, or is there any moments throughout your struggles that you had that you feel that positivity helped you overcome, whereas if you didn't have that positivity, you wouldn't have?
Oh, absolutely. I have my days, and I've had my friends encourage me. I had to work through chemo. And so having to go to chemo on Monday, work Tuesday through Friday, have the weekend off. And so on the weekends, I would I wouldn't have the opportunity to get all done up and stuff during the weekday because I'm just trying to get through work and everything. So on the weekends, I would like do my makeup and I would do like TikTok videos and like do inspirational things. And that was like one thing that really helped me as I was going through this journey. Even when I was in the pandemic, I live alone. And so that was like a very lonely time. So that those kind of things, like me being silly and like me like just showing my joy, those were the things that really helped me through some dark times. And I think that, deep within, everyone has that positive light within themselves, and they just have to tap into it, especially when it's going on for too long. Like depression is real, and so that stuff really helps to kind of pull you out of your dark places that you can be in.
Okay, so I want to kind of touch on fear because I know fear it stops people from achieving a lot. It can stop you from living if you're facing an illness. It can stop you from being successful if you have visions or dreams, and it can keep you stuck in a life that you're not too happy with. And reading your story, the way that you wrote it, the way it is articulated, you can feel what you went through, and it just felt like I was like watching a movie or something. So, what I want to know is how did you cope with from the moment where you thought maybe this is something, because I know we've all been there where we think that we have something, and maybe, and a lot of times cancer is the thing that crosses your mind. You go Google and they say, oh, this is cancer, or this is some type of life-threatening thing. You think it's the worst and you might try to put it off. But, you went to the doctor and they didn't even tell you what it was at the time. But it took a while for you to actually come to the realization of what it was after multiple doctor visits. So, what was that time like for you, and how did you overcome that? Like, how did you get through that?
Woo! You know what? I look back on it and I don't know how I did it, because the most ironic thing is that I was actually working on a breast cancer initiative or program at my job. And so at the time, the moment that I went to go get my lump checked out, I was doing a competitive analysis on breast cancer health disparities. And so that was I was already doing research. So Google was there and I was like wondering what was going on. And then when I got the call, that day was like one of the worst days of my life. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know like if I was going to be okay. And so that was a really tough time for me. But what I did was I made sure that I prayed. I made sure that I stayed close to God, and I got all my prayer warriors. I mean, the old ladies who know how to pray. I called them up and I prayed every day. Like for a long time, I was praying like every day and just like, asking God to comfort me. And I think that when you go through this, you can't lean on yourself. You have to lean on God, and that's who's gonna like give you that comfort. And I think that was the main thing that comforted me, because you could call people and they have that fear, and they can project it on you too. You know, not saying that they meant to do that, but you know, it's a scary thing when you get a diagnosis and people are afraid. So I think for me, it was really leaning upon the word of God, and I found a scripture, you know, that I stood on, and it was Isaiah 53. By his wounds I am healed, and so I've been doing that scripture, doing that prayer like every day, just for myself to really know and trust in God. So having faith in God and just really, you know, staying in the Word.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know what? One thing I forgot to ask you, I wanted to ask you, starting your YouTube channel, you know, how was it for you? You know, and back on fear, how was it for you, like getting in front of the camera and just putting yourself out there like that? Was that something that came natural to you, or were you a little nervous about it?
It's funny because I think I have like split personalities. Like when I'm on TikTok, I can be silly. So like if I'm being silly, I can get out there and do it. But then if I'm being serious, I do get a little bit nervous. So I think that originally, like I was nervous to start it, and then it's like you're just sitting in a room by yourself, so you don't really know. You can't gauge like how you're being viewed until you go back and watch it. So yeah, so I have a little bit of both. Like I felt a little nervous, but at the same time, it was something that I wanted to get out there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I would like to ask you, you know, saying after all you have experienced in your life, but you've had a very adventurous life, and I know you have more to come. What advice would you give anyone watching this, you know, just for their own happiness and life fulfillment?
The advice that I can give to people is don't take life so serious all the time, because you'll sit back and you'll realize that, you know, the most important thing is relaxing and finding your joy and your happiness. So like if you are like working all the time and grinding and you don't have enough time to relax and be with your family and, you know, taking those moments that are important, then, you know, that's something that you need to reevaluate. Because a couple things for me, like the pandemic showed me one thing, things like got taken away, like the privilege for me to travel got taken away. I haven't seen my mom since 2019. So you know, am wishing that I would have spent more time with her, or like traveling. Like when your friend is like, "Oh, do you want to go here?" and you're like, "Oh, I don't have enough." Try to figure it out. You know, maybe you can do that. So it's just like jumping on the moments that you don't want to regret, because you don't want to have any regrets in life. So I think that's important. And not always taking life so serious. Like you shouldn't like try to burn yourself out. Take time for yourself. I think health is important. It should be number one, because your body is your vehicle, right? What you put in your body, what you eat, whether even the people you hang around with. Like if you're hanging around negative people, then that also will bring you down. So your environment, all of that stuff is important. So your environment, your health, you know, making moments to spend time with the people you love, and then just not taking everything so seriously.
Right. Yeah, that was great. I couldn't say that. That was a very good answer. Yeah, so we'll be wrapping it up. It was very nice speaking with you. I hope that people got some type of inspiration from Senita, all that she's going through, and just look at her glow, her positive attitude, and what you said at the end, which is priceless. That was great. All right, so success is not a destination, it's a lifestyle. Find joy in productive things, and your life will be as you paint it. Everybody have a good one.
Thank you.